Okay.
But it's a it's a different model than the, as I said, they would be quick to say they're not an egalitarian community. So it's definitely a different model. It's a very nice community in many ways. It's just not what I'm looking for.
Right. And have you done income sharing before in previous communities?
Yes, the community I was talking about with that I did in the '90s with Robert and a woman named Susan. There were more people than that, but we were the core of it, and we decided right from the beginning. I think Robert and I imagined a community where we'd be doing income sharing. Susan had not done this before. She had 2 kids. She was a little scared of it, but she was willing to give it a shot. So we spent a good year or 2 talking about the problems, the fears, etc. about income sharing. And eventually she did it, and eventually she actually wrote an article for Communities Magazine about getting to do income sharing. It was wonderful, and we did a very simple version of income sharing where we, all of us working 3 different jobs. We just pooled all our money, and then, from that pool, bought whatever we needed. So, we did a budget, and one of the things we did was said that if you need to buy anything over, say, $20, then you need to come to a meeting and talk about it. But we were not going to have, if you need to spend a couple of bucks for something, don't bother bringing it to a meeting so we don't spend all our time haggling over little minutia. So it worked out pretty good. When the community was over, I did talk with Robert and Susan, actually years after it was over, and said, what worked and what didn't work. And one thing they both agreed was that the income sharing worked. It worked fine. That wasn't one of the problems. So.
Cool. Did you have any specific challenges with either getting it started or once you were doing it, did you run into anything, or was it just pretty straightforward?
Well, the challenge was, as I said at the beginning, especially from Susan, who had not done this before. Again, she talks about all this in her article in Communities Magazine, but one thing she says is that she was afraid she was going to have to account for every pair of socks she bought. It was kind of, and so I think what we did, which was really smart, was rather than, I mentioned Robert and I actually created 3 different communities. In the first community we tried to do everything all at once. And that was a learning experience. Don't do that again. It's kind of like start off simple and then keep adding pieces. So we knew from the beginning we wanted to do income sharing, but we didn't add it at the beginning because we were busy doing other stuff. When things settled down, then we looked at income sharing. We spent a long time building trust and making sure we were on board, and then it functioned fairly well. But it functioned well because we had done a lot of work to create it. It wasn't,
What kind of groundwork do you think is necessary for communities that want to, maybe they're already existing and then they want to start income sharing? What's important to do before you jump in?
I think a couple of things. One is to really understand what's involved. People have all sorts of ideas and fantasies and stuff about what's in regard. For instance, income sharing is not the same as asset sharing. That is, if you have a lot of money in the bank at the beginning of it, for instance, Twin Oaks, I know does this, and a number of other communities do this. They basically say you cannot touch your assets while you're income sharing. You cannot profit from them if you start being at Twin Oaks and say you have $1 million in the bank and you're getting an interest rate of several thousand every year, you have to turn over that several thousand to the communities because that's money you're making while you're at the community. But the base level you don't have to deal with. You kind of keep for yourself. Nobody's going to object if you want to give the money to the community, you understand, but it's yours. If you leave the community, then you have that to fall back on. There's a lot of questions like how does equity work? How does and these aren't things that people have answers to. What's clear to me is that On the FEC website, there is a list of 7 principles you have to do to be an egalitarian community. As long as you do those principles, you can structure it any way you want. As I said, we were like working at separate jobs and coming in and sort of pooling our money. The Twin Oaks and Acorn have industries, so people don't even see the money. They just, you know, sort of work internal cottage industries. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it. It's not how you do it. It's I think the basic framework is that you need to find some way that's fair for everybody, that everybody's in the same boat, and as long as it's egalitarian, then, you know, I think it's doable. So step 1 is to try to figure out how you want to do this and what's involved and what the realities are. And I think step 2 is to then begin to deal with the fears and the, you know, because people, especially with money, have so many feelings up and so much fear and stuff like that, and you don't want to poo-poo somebody's fears. You don't want to say, oh, no, it's nothing to worry about. You want to look realistically at them. You want to think about them. You want to have them all out